Greetings, knights and knaves, lords and ladies, 'tis I, your Lord Commander, and today I have something a little different planned for you. It has been stated in the past that you guys actually really enjoy the process of putting together and building our own faction in Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. And so today I thought I would give you a detailed insight as to the process that I take in order to make that happen. So first and foremost, as we go about building our custom faction here in Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, I will be going through the mod list that I use as well, and you can find these mods linked in the description below. I currently am playing on version 103 rather than the 1.1 release date version, because I needed my mods to work the way that I wanted them to, in order to be able to showcase the parts of the faction building process that I thought was necessary for you guys to be able to follow along with and to be able to mimic in your own creative way. But of course, if you already know what it is that I'm attempting to share with you guys today, feel free to skip through these sections of today's video using the timestamps that I have below. But without further ado, lads, let us get into the adventure. So step 1 is in fact to start either a new campaign or a new sandbox. I personally prefer the sandbox, so we will go ahead and do that. Once we get past the opening cutscene, or skip it if you're like myself because you're impatient, you will get to the character culture screen. So I do have myself down here in this bottom corner. I do realize there is a lot of UI stuff up here in this corner throughout the duration of this video, so if it looks like I'm looking in different directions, it's because I am. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that I was out of the way so that I can showcase everything that I needed to show you guys for today's video. So for today's video, we will be building actually a custom Celtic-inspired Scottish rebel faction. So we will be choosing, in fact, the Britannian culture. The Britannians still remembered the olden days when the woods stretched across northern Calradia, and the Empire and its cities had yet to violate their sanctity. The fierce warriors remain loyal to their traditional ways. They paint their faces when going to battle, and even their noblemen prefer to fight on foot, while using great axes and two-handed swords with deadly efficiency. Now, of course, with each culture, you already know that you have 2 bonuses per culture and then 1 negative debuff. For the Britannians, you get 50% less speed penalty and 15% sight range bonus in forests, and towns owned by Britannian rulers have +1 militia production, which I think is pretty interesting. But however, we do have a 10% slower build rate for town projects in settlements. So if you were to conquer a castle or a city and you wanted them to build, say, barracks or walls to protect said castle or city, these projects will build at a 10% slower rate than if you were any other culture in the game. So that is quite unfortunate. Anyway, once you have moved on and you have selected your culture, you will now be taken into the character customization screen. And of course, you know how I get. Love character customization. I could literally spend hours doing it. But in order to get myself a little bit of inspiration, I do in fact watch a lot of movies and TV shows. I read a lot of books, and I read a lot of comics and everything like that. But of course, if you are not like that and you don't know where to pull inspiration from, you could always just randomize everything a couple of times until you find something that you like to start off with. A nice little frame, if you will. Alright, so I do in fact like this this starting off point. His hair is definitely gonna have to go, but the idea is to make this big hulking brute of a Scottish warrior in order to lead the men of the woods to victory against the oncoming onslaughts of neighboring nations. So let's go ahead and jack that man's hide up pretty high. We'll set his age pretty low. I like to start with a pretty young age, especially if you've been with us for the Knight series. You know that Sir Baron did in fact pass away, which is quite unfortunate. And so, in order to keep that from happening too early on in the campaign, I would like to start us off at a pretty young age. We can keep our weight kind of down, but I want our build to be pretty jacked. That man is a mountain of a man. Look at him. He's just a brute, a hulking brute of a man. I love that. Anywho, moving on. Excellent. And now we have our beautiful character created. This man is just an absolute menace. I took a lot of inspiration for this character from Game of Thrones, The Outlaw King on Netflix if you haven't seen it, and of course The Last Kingdom, again on Netflix if you have not seen it. I highly recommend all of these shows. They're definitely a long-time favorite of mine. But once you are satisfied with the character that you have created, you will in fact now be moving on to your character's background. This is probably the most important part of the customization process of building your own faction, at least in my personal opinion. The reason I say that is because your character's background will in fact determine the starting traits of your character as well as the starting level of each trait. Starting with vigor, control, endurance, cunning, social, and intelligence, which you cannot see behind my big ass head, I do apologize. Each of these traits will in fact determine your efficiency with the different aspects of gameplay throughout the course of the campaign. Vigor will determine your mastery with weapons and dealing physical damage. Control will determine your mastery of range and your accuracy skills. Endurance affects your ability of horse riding, running, and speed like that while you're on foot, and of course your smithing stamina. While cunning, in fact, will determine the abilities of scouting, tactics, and roguery if you decide to take a less than lawful approach. Your social skills is a pretty self-explanatory, will in fact determine your ability to interact with other people throughout the course of the campaign, including things like charm, leadership, and trade. Your social skill will in fact determine how charismatic your character will be, and how easily it will be for your character to convince other people to do things in favor of you and your campaign. While your intelligence is more like book smarts rather than street smarts, you know? You have stewardship, medicine, and engineering. Stewardship will affect your ability to manage your troops and manage the money of your party and your armies. Whereas medicine, obviously, is pretty self-explanatory, determines your ability to heal both yourself and the troops that are wounded in your party after each battle. And then, of course, engineering will determine how efficient you are at laying siege and siege defenses in some of the later game siege battles and major faction wars. That being said, and I hope I explained that decently enough for you guys, I do apologize if I did not. There are much better minds who have made much better and much more intuitive YouTube videos about stuff like this, so I do apologize. But anyway, now that that has been sufficiently explained, let us continue on with our character's background. So the first part of your character's background is your family. It is your heritage. It is what traits you were given from your parentage and what will essentially determine your early life in the background lore of your character. It's also not a bad idea to help aid in a little bit of role-playing. If you're like myself and you like to truly immerse yourself into the gameplay and into your custom-made characters. So for this character, I decided I wanted to build them to be the descendants of this great clan of lords. His father was a lord and his father before him, and on and on. For generations, they were lords within the lands of the Battanians who fought, who raised armies, carried the banner of their liege lord into battle time and again for the defense of the Battanian people and their lands. And so, to aid in that idea, to help build up into that idea of a character, I have chosen our family as members of the Chieftain's Hearthguard. I hope you can see it. I can't see where my face is at, so I hope you can read this, but if not, of course, I will read aloud for you guys. Your family were the trusted kinfolk of a Battanian chieftain, and sat at his table in his great hall. Your father assisted his chief in running the affairs of the clan and trained with the traditional weapons of the Battanian elite, the two-handed sword or fox, and the bow. Now, choosing this family background will give you 10 skill levels and 1 focus point to two-handed and bow, and 1 attribute point to vigor. As you can see, we do have an increased level in two-handed and 1 plus to bow, and then an increased level to our vigor. So as you continue on to build your character's background, it will start to affect your starting traits and your starting attributes. Moving on, we will now decide our character's early childhood. So personally, whenever making a good character, one thing that I've always made sure to implement with my character designs is opposing personality traits. And what that means is if your character is really strong, really good with heavy weapons and wears a lot of heavy armor, an opposing trait would be to make them incredibly intelligent. This will help make your character a little bit more relatable and realistic, both in your roleplay but also to any viewers if you're like me and you like to perform for an audience. That being said, I have chosen for our early childhood that our character was noted for his way with people. You were always attentive to other people, good at guessing their motivations. You studied how individuals were swayed and tried out what you learned from adults on your friends. This will give us 10 skill levels and 1 focus point to charm and leadership, including 1 attribute point to social. This will essentially help to build up the idea of this heir to a lordship. You know what I'm saying? The way that Robb Stark became the new Lord of Winterfell after the fall of his father, Ned Stark. So too will it be here in our campaign with this man. He was in fact a great big brutish young man, but the one thing that stood out over his physical appearance and his massive physical presence was in fact the intelligence hidden behind such brawny muscles. Choosing this option will in fact later on help our dear man to become a more articulate and relatable leader to his people. Moving on, we now have to choose our adolescence. As a young man, as a young teenager, running around, being a fool, you know, running around with his friends, with the boys, with the homies, if you will. For this option, I chose to put our young man to work, working in the village smithy. This will give him another attribute point to vigor, as well as increased two-handed mastery, and then 1 to smithing, which I don't truly intend on utilizing throughout this campaign, but I did want it just to increase both his vigor and his two-handed weapon mastery. Moving on, we now choose our youth. This is in fact our young adult years, our older teenage years. I assume between 15 and 18 is 15 and 19 would be my guess. As a youngster growing up in Calradia, war was never too far away. For roleplay purposes, I did in fact choose for this option the chieftain's servant. Your family arranged for you to accompany a chieftain of your people. You were not given major responsibilities, mostly carrying messages and tending to his horse, but it did give you a chance to see how campaigns were planned and men were deployed in battle. This gives us +1 focus point to both steward and tactics, and 1 attribute point to cunning, which will help us in the long run in order to increase our scouting and our tactics level. And I also really enjoyed the idea of our young man becoming a ward to a Battanian lord, a chieftain, and learning the ropes of leadership and being groomed for command one day. Much like Jon Snow, who was in fact groomed for command by the old bear Jeor Mormont, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. And lastly, our young adulthood. This is the twilight years of our childhood into the early years of manhood here for our man. Already he is a towering, hulking brute of a man His head is already smashing into the text at the top of the screen, and his toes tickle the bottom of the computer screen. Before you set out for a life of adventure, your biggest achievement was... For this option, I did in fact choose you defeated an enemy in battle. Not everyone who musters for the levy marches to war, and not everyone who goes on campaigns sees action. You did both. And you also took down an enemy warrior in direct one-to-one combat, in the full view of your comrades. Choosing this option gives us 1 focus point to one-handed and two-handed, plus 1 attribute point to vigor. This will also give us plus 1 to valor and 20 renown starting off. And having plus 20 renown from the defeated an enemy in battle option is in fact the most renown that you can start off with in the game. Every other option is either 5 or 10. This also gives us plus 1 to our Valor personality trait, or daring, I should say. Valor represents your reputation for risking your life to win glory or wealth or advance your cause, which is exactly what we're here to do. We are here to build up the name of our clan and our kingdom in the name of our Lord Father, who has since passed away, unfortunately. And then last but not least, it is time to choose your starting age. When you choose your starting age, it will in fact determine how many skill points and focus points you can start off with in the game, as well as how much starting renown and how many troops you can have in your party. If you choose to start off as a younger man, while lacking experience a bit, you are full with youthful energy. You are fully eager for the long years of adventuring ahead. Choosing the 20-year-old option will only start you off with 2 focus points and 1 attribute point. Now, my option is always to start off at the age of 30. You are at your prime. You still have some youthful energy, but you also have a substantial amount of experience under your belt. This option will give us 4 unspent focus points and 2 attribute points. Ever since I started playing this game years ago, the 30-year-old option is always the one that I start off with. And it also enables us to recruit more troops because we are older in age and not quite so young. Our experience will speak for itself and allow us to recruit more troops early on in the campaign. Now, once that is done, comes down to my favorite part of the faction building process, and that is creating a custom banner. Using the banner paste, I believe it is called the banner paste mod. I will have it linked in the description below. This mod will allow us to create a unique custom banner using an external website and then be able to copy and paste it into the game directly. That being said, you do want to go ahead and move on to www.bannerlord.party/banner. I will again put the link in the description for you guys. Now, before we begin, I will be going through the how to utilize this website for those of you who are new to stuff like this. So in the left-hand column here, we do have our layers. At the very top, we have our background, and then of course, what you have to select your layer that you plan on using, and then you can go here to change your pattern. I want us to have a nice solid pattern in the background, and then for each layer you have 2 colors that you can utilize, but you have an infinite amount of layers that you can use as well. So the only limit here is your imagination. While you're utilizing the color section here of each layer, the top color will be your primary, and then the bottom color will be your secondary color. So if you have a solid colored background like this one, the top layer will be the main color that you see. So being a Britannian, Scottish, Celtic warrior, of course we need a full green background. And then of course, as our main sigil, unfortunately the options are limited to the different banner options that we have in the game. But you can add a bunch of different sigils and symbols together in order to create something entirely unique. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and create our custom banner, and I will show you guys the finished product in just a moment. Alrighty lads, we have, at long last, I'm so sorry about that, we have finally our custom banner. I really enjoy how this looks, I'm not gonna lie. So notice off to the left we have all of our layers, plenty of different items to utilize. And then of course, if you go in, you can adjust, you can't really see it behind my big head, but there are options, the X and Y axis for positioning, as well as the width and height of the item that you're using in your custom banner, as well as the degree of angle, because you can go ahead and turn it for maximum creativity. Again, the only limitation to this app is your creativity. You can make just about anything on here. And then if you scroll down on the page, you will have a bunch of different, inspiration options that you can look through. I guess this one does not want to scroll. There we go. Yeah, there's a couple of different options here. That's pretty cool looking. Belmont's clan. That's pretty cool. Yeah, there's some pretty cool options. There are some really creative people utilizing this app, so it's pretty neat. Look at that, like that's crazy. Anywho, but this is in fact our custom banner made for our Battanian playthrough. And then if you notice here, we have a copy code, and it gives us like a really long number. What you want to do is you want to click copy to clipboard, and then go back into Bannerlord, and utilizing the banner paste mod, you want to press Control V. And it will automatically paste in our custom banner. Just look at that. That looks absolutely brilliant, in my opinion. It's just so cool looking. Now the colors are a bit difficult to see on the shield, but overall I think it's a pretty decent design, and I think all the details really get the attention they deserve on the full banner effect. So that being said, we can go ahead and hit next. And now of course it is time to select our clan name. The Fen Earache. That's kind of how I read that at first. I do apologize. Now when it comes to naming the clans and the characters, I do utilize Google Translate a lot, and again I pull inspiration from both history and a lot of the TV shows that I watch. For lack of a better name, we're gonna call these guys the Golden Green Warriors. It's literally just golden green, but I just made it a little extra, a little bit extra, you know what I'm saying? Just gotta add that little bit of extra role playing, give it a sense of culture even. So we are the Golden Green Warriors. I think that's pretty cool. And then, last but not least, it is time to name the character. Dermot is the name that they've given us. Yurien, Meek, Cadfin, Dungil. We're gonna name this man Bjorlaf. He is Bjorlaf of the Golden Grain Warriors. I selected Bjor, like Bjorn, which is Norse for bear, and then Laf, like leaf, So he is Bjorlaf of the Golden Grain Warriors. And then of course you have your difficulty settings. So for me personally, I always have the clan member death possibility in battles as realistic. I have enable birth and death, so that the characters will constantly die and they'll give birth to new characters as well. It kind of makes the game a little more realistic, a little bit endless, so you can kind of continue on for generations. And then for hero deaths, I would prefer my character not die immediately in combat, so I have disabled battle death for player hero only, but clan members and other heroes can still die. I also have auto allocate clan member perks, only because I don't want to have to deal with it, especially because we have so many companions thanks to the distinguished service mod, which again will be linked in the description below. And then but if you would prefer to build your troops and your companions into specific roles that you need for them, then feel free to keep auto allocate off, and then you can go in and select the perks for your companions manually. I, however, am lazy, so I have it set up to do it automatically. And then if you want a true test and challenge, you can go ahead and turn on Iron Man mode. What that does is that you have one solid save file, and you cannot save and you cannot reload a previous save So if you're going into a battle that you know you cannot win and you save it beforehand, you will not be able to go back and load it after the fact. So if you want to be able to save before a difficult battle and then be able to load back if you lose said battle, I recommend not playing on Iron Man mode. But if you're like me and you enjoy a decent challenge, feel free to turn on Iron Man mode for your campaign. And then finally, at long last, you can go in and start your game. And now here we are, lads. We have been dropped off in the middle of the map of Calradia. We are here right at the southern tip of the Battanian territories. We are here outside of the city of Marunoth. Now don't forget to go to the character tab down at the bottom right and go in and go in and choose your focus points and your attribute points as well for your gameplay. For two-handed, we already have one perk that we can go ahead and choose. We're going to use Wood Chopper. That's going to help increase our damage against shields, which will help out against shield wall formations as well. So we have decent enough skills with the bow, but we're going to add one to throwing weapons as well, so we can utilize javelins and other throwing weapons that we will find within the territories of Battania. We're going to increase our medicine by at least 2. And then I prefer to choose to add 1 to scouting to help out with our range of sight as we travel across the map. And then lastly, I would prefer to have at least 1 for athletics as well, so that we can increase our stamina and our running speed as we jump into combat against massive armies or against smaller parties, whatever the case may be. As for our attribute points, I will add 1 to control, since we seem to be lacking there, and then 1 to endurance as well. Our intelligence is not quite as high as I intended, but we do have a impressive amount of physical prowess on the battlefield, which is exactly the vibe that we were shooting for with our character. And now for one of the most time-consuming parts of the creative process, it is time to create our custom troops utilizing the MyLittleWarband mod. With the recruits that we just recruited from Marunoth, we are going to press go to the party menu. We are going to we're going to right click on the portrait in order to pull them up in the encyclopedia, and then we're going to shift click on their portrait in order to pull up the unit editor. Now, to keep things fair, they do come with, as you add more troops into the unit tree, they will have the increased skill level cap and the certain amount of points that you can add to their stats in order to boost whatever trait it is that they are for whatever unit type that they are. So if they are archer types, of course, you know, they need to have as high a bowman skill as possible. And then if they are a two-handed warrior type with warrior, they'll have the you'll need to have as many two-handed points as possible, and so on and so forth. Now, if you're like me and you like to cheat a little bit to ensure some victory, you can go up here into the top right corner where we have the settings. And what I'll do is I'll disable the gear restrictions. This will allow lower tier troops to equip higher tier weapons and armor. You can also disable skill total restrictions, which gives them a massive increase to skill points. And you can turn off the skill cap restrictions, which can increase the unit's overall level altogether. Now, that's only if you like to cheat and ensure a massive victory. I, however, would love a bit of a challenge, so we are going to keep both of these turned off, but we will in fact have the unrestricted gear. Now, when creating your troops, we are going to go through and edit our culture. Because we are Battanian, we will have Battanian troops. This will change the color of their clothing as well as their physical appearance on the field of battle. Now, down here at the very bottom, we have an equipment filter options. So at the very top, we have tiers. We're going to change the tiers. We're going to keep 0, 1, and 2 for our tier 1 troops. Now, under the tier option, we do have a culture option. We're going to change that to Battania only. This will ensure that we only get filtered the Battanian weapons and Battanian armors as well. That way we can keep to the aesthetic that we've chosen for our campaign and our troops. Essentially, when you're creating your own units, everything is entirely up to you, however you want your hierarchy and your unit trees to be. So if you want really high tier troops all the way through, make every single one of them all the way jacked up in stats and in gear. It'll be super broken and super OP, but if that's the playthrough that you're going for, then absolutely do it. Again, a lot of this is up to you as the player, and it is highly recommended that you choose whatever path best fits your playstyle and what makes you more comfortable, and to ensure that you have a fun time playing. Alrighty, lads. So at long last, we finally have our unit tree set up. This is a very basic unit tree to start us off, even though it does go quite in depth. We do have a focus on our melee and infantry troops. We don't have any cavalry yet, but I figured those would be pretty later into the campaign as we go along into the playthrough and whatnot. So starting with our basic troop, we do have the clan folk. Real basic. They come equipped with either a one-handed axe, a one-handed sword, or a one-handed club, as well as just some basic throwing knives. They do have very basic armor with either a steel cap or a leather cap, as well as the toga, the tartan toga, to give it the real like Celtic, Scottish, like clan folk kind of vibe. And then from there we do have the warrior class, a real basic warrior, one-handed and shield. Focus is not too bad. These guys are going to be the bulk of our shield wall formations. Now the warrior then splits off into two tiers. We do have the one-handed shield wielding warlord, real heavy armored with equipped with throwing javelins on their back. And then from the warlord we have the harasser, a lot heavier armor and better weaponry, but they are in fact going to be our shock troops. We're going to send them in and give them a run for their money, as it were. And then of course we have our Ironborn warriors, the heavy set, a massive wall of a man with a massive tall shield on their back, and equipped with both throwing javelins and throwing axes as well. And then on the other side, from the warrior, we do have our two-handed skill tree. We do have our two-handed warriors. We have the raider. They come equipped with either the two-handed axe or a two-handed sword, both pretty medium armored, but with lots of fur and the introduction of like the animalistic kind of traits to them. And then from the raider we have the brutes, either a brown or a gray wolf cloak to cover them up, and they come equipped with the massive sledgehammer. And then from there we have the Beastborn. They are our elite warriors with I guess I just gave them the two-handed blade, which is fine, and a bunch of throwing axes. Is gonna make them absolutely menacing on the battlefield and a true force to be reckoned with. And then of course no army is complete without a bit of archers. So we do have the hunter class, very basic. They come with a a light kilt, and then the fur armor because they are, animal hunters, and then a one-handed woodland axe to help them out should they run out of ammunition. And then from there we have the ranger, a little more heavily armored. They do have the scarf covering their face, and then a small cap covering their head, and they come equipped with a Highland mace. And that is it for our ranger class, actually. And that is the full set. Here it is, our full unit tree from the clan folk and then onwards. I think it's pretty cool. And then of course there are also elite troops that we have yet to set up, and I figured we could reserve those for our mounted troops as well. So that just about does it for our build here today. I do hope you guys enjoyed. There's only one thing left to do, and that is to actually test out our units in battle. So give me just a few moments to recruit some more troops, and then we can find a lowly group of bandits nearby and hunt them down and cut them down in combat. Aha! A party of 23 looters to test out our clan folk.
Infantry!
Alright lads, follow me. Come on, let's fight the bastards. Look at these men, these true Scottish warriors. Oh, they're crazy. They're absolutely insane. Throwing daggers out, lads. Come on. How about these criminal scum? Charge in there, lads. Have at them. Yes, look at that. Look at them go. Come on. Come on, you bastards. Boop. Boop. Oh, it's menacing. It's insane. A true challenge. Come on. One left, lads. Oh, there we go. Now one left. Nice. Ooh, damn. Victory, lads. Very nice indeed. Ah, they still managed to kill 3 of ours. 3 of our clan folk. Not bad, though. Not bad at all. Very nice. Alrighty, lads. And that is all we have planned for this episode. I did not intend on doing a full playthrough with this character, but if you would like me to, since we went through the trouble of building everything up anyway, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you liked this video and you found it helpful to the faction building process and a little bit of creativity for you guys, then feel free to drop a like and drop a comment and just let me know. It means the world to me to have your guys' feedback, absolutely. Also, feel free to let me know if you want to see a build on any other kind of faction, perhaps a Viking Raider or a Roman Centurion kind of build. Feel free to let me know. I will absolutely make something happen for you guys. But until that time, my friends, always, always, always remember, honor and service, glory and sacrifice. And I, your Lord Commander, will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.